The rain had stopped just minutes before she arrived. Emily Carter stood outside the Silver Leaf, her reflection trembling in the glass doors of the elegant restaurant. Inside, waiters in black suits moved between candlelit tables, and the low hum of piano music filled the air. She adjusted the strap of her faded handbag and looked down at the baby in her arms. Noah. He was barely 1 year old, his small face tucked against her shoulder, breathing softly. "Okay, buddy," she whispered. "Just one dinner. Then we'll go home, I promise." She wasn't sure if she was convincing him or herself. Emily hadn't been on any kind of date or meeting in over 2 years. Not since her ex had left her when she was 7 months pregnant, saying he wasn't ready to be a dad. Since then, her world had shrunk to diapers, bills, and endless job applications that all seemed to end the same way. "We're sorry, but we've decided to move forward with another candidate." Tonight was supposed to be different. Her best friend, Leah, had set her up with an important contact. "He's the CEO of Blackwell Industries, M. Just meet him for dinner. Even if it's not about a job, it's a chance to make an impression." So she said yes. Even though she had nothing to wear except her old blue dress and even though the babysitter had cancelled last minute. She pushed open the door, the scent of roasted garlic and expensive wine wrapping around her. Her heart hammered as she scanned the tables, and then she saw him. Adrian Blackwell. He looked exactly like the business magazines described him. Young, tall, impeccably dressed, with dark hair and sharp, focused eyes that seemed to notice everything. The kind of man who probably had people trembling when he entered a room. And she was about to walk up to him holding a baby. "This is insane," she thought. "He's going to think I'm irresponsible." But turning back wasn't an option. Leah had pulled strings for this, and Emily couldn't afford to waste an opportunity. So she took a deep breath, adjusted Noah on her hip, and walked forward. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, voice shaking. He looked up from his phone. His expression was polite but distant, the type of look powerful men wore when they didn't have time for pleasantries. "Yes," he said, rising slightly from his seat. "You must be Ms. Carter." Emily nodded, clutching Noah's blanket like a lifeline. Yes, that's me. I'm so sorry." She swallowed hard. "My babysitter cancelled at the last minute, and I had no one else. I brought my baby." There was a long pause. Around them, silverware clinked softly. A woman laughed at another table. But between them, silence stretched like a wire ready to snap. Adrian's eyes dropped to the child in her arms. Noah stirred, blinking sleepy blue eyes before letting out a small sound and snuggling closer to his mother's chest. Emily's cheeks burned. "I know this is unprofessional. I completely understand if you'd rather reschedule." But before she could finish, Adrian stood up. His tall frame cast a shadow over her, but his expression had shifted, no longer cold or detached, but unexpectedly gentle. He extended his arms slightly. "May I?" Emily froze. You want to hold him?" He nodded once, almost shyly. "If you're comfortable with it." For a second, she hesitated. Then, with a slow breath, she placed Noah in his arms. The transformation was instant. The CEO who commanded boardrooms with icy precision now stood awkwardly, holding a baby who immediately grabbed his tie and giggled. Adrian blinked, then, astonishingly, laughed. A quiet, real laugh that softened the hard edges of his face. "Well," he murmured, "he has good taste. This is one of my favorite ties." Emily couldn't help it. She laughed too. A small, nervous sound that melted into relief. "He likes shiny things. And people who smile." Adrian's gaze flicked to her, the corners of his lips still curved. "Then I'll try to earn his approval." They sat down, Noah perched comfortably on Adrian's lap as if he'd known him forever. Emily watched in awe as Adrian handled him with surprising ease, steady hands, calm movements, even wiping away a bit of drool with a napkin without flinching. "You're good with kids," she said finally. He looked up, almost startled by the compliment. "My sister has twins. I spent enough holidays being their climbing frame to know what to do." Emily smiled. "Still, most people panic when they see a baby. Most people," he said, his tone softening, "don't see the beauty in something real." The words hung between them, and for the first time in years, Emily felt seen, not as a struggling single mother, not as a resume on a desk, but as a person. Dinner flowed easier than she expected. Adrian asked thoughtful questions, not just about her experience, but about her ideas, her hopes. She told him how she'd left her last marketing job when the company downsized, how she'd been freelancing to stay afloat, and how she wanted to build a stable life for her son. He listened intently, never interrupting, occasionally bouncing Noah gently when he stirred. At one point, when Noah began fussing, Emily apologized again, embarrassed. But Adrian only smiled, reached for a breadstick, and handed it to the little boy, who immediately started chewing on it happily. "There," Adrian said, amused. "Negotiations successful." Emily laughed, shaking her head. "You really are something else, Mr. Blackwell." "Adrian," he corrected softly. "You can call me Adrian." The warmth in his tone startled her. No one in years had said her name the way he did, like it mattered. When dessert came, Noah finally drifted off to sleep, his head resting against Emily's shoulder. Adrian watched quietly as she brushed a hand over her son's soft hair, her face glowing in the candlelight. "You're strong," he said suddenly. Emily blinked. "What? You walked in here knowing you might be judged, knowing people might stare. But you did it anyway. Most people wouldn't have the courage." Her throat tightened. "I didn't feel brave. I just didn't have a choice." "Sometimes," he said, his voice low, "the hardest choices are the ones that show who we really are." She looked up, meeting his eyes, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. A connection, gentle, unfamiliar, but real. As the night wound down, Adrian insisted on walking her to her car. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement, and Emily shifted Noah carefully as they stopped beside her old sedan. "I really appreciate tonight," she said softly. "You could have sent me away. Most people would have." He shrugged lightly, his hands in his pockets. "Most people are fools." Then, after a pause, "You said you were looking for work." Her heart skipped. "Yes, I applied for an assistant marketing position at your company, actually. But I'm sure you have better candidates." A small smile tugged at his lips. "I don't think so." She blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Adrian's gaze drifted to Noah, sleeping soundly. "I value honesty and determination, Ms. Carter. Tonight, I saw both." Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. He took a small step back, his eyes soft now. "Drive safe. And, thank you for coming, even with everything on your plate." She smiled faintly. "Thank you for not judging me." He tilted his head slightly, that rare smile returning. "On the contrary, I'm impressed." Emily got into her car, still dazed. As she started the engine, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Adrian was still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching her taillights fade into the night. The email arrived on a quiet Monday morning. Emily had just finished washing Noah's bottles when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, expecting another, "Thank you for applying," rejection. But when she saw the sender, Blackwell Industries, her hands froze midair. Her heart thudded. She opened it. Greater than subject. "Welcome to Blackwell Industries. Dear Ms. Carter, after reviewing your qualifications and, more importantly, your character, I am pleased to offer you the position of Assistant Marketing Manager. Your first day will be Monday. Adrian Blackwell." At the bottom was a short handwritten note scanned into the message. "Greater than, you impressed me, not because you tried to be perfect, but because you were real. See you soon. A." Her breath caught. She pressed a hand over her mouth to stifle the sob that came out, half disbelief, half relief. Noah, sitting in his high chair, clapped his tiny hands at the sound, his face lighting up in delight. Emily laughed through her tears. "We did it, Noah. Mommy got the job. Dash dash dash." The first day at Blackwell Industries felt like stepping into another world. The building itself was sleek and modern, with walls of glass and marble floors that echoed faintly with every footstep. Emily's nerves fluttered as she adjusted the hem of her blazer. She hadn't worn one in years, and she kept smoothing it as though confidence could be ironed into fabric. When she reached the 22nd floor, Adrian's assistant, a warm woman named Claire, greeted her with a bright smile. "He's expecting you," she said, guiding her to a large corner office. Emily hesitated at the doorway. Adrian was at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and that same quiet smile appeared, the one that had stayed in her mind since that night. "Ms. Carter," he said, standing. "Welcome to the team." She smiled nervously. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell." Adrian," he corrected gently. "We're not in a restaurant anymore." Her cheeks warmed. "Right, Adrian." He motioned for her to sit. "I know you've been through a lot. You don't need to prove yourself here. Just be who you are." That's what impressed me. The sincerity in his tone disarmed her. He wasn't the cold CEO she had imagined from his reputation. He was still composed, still focused, but there was warmth beneath the surface, something he rarely let people see. Over the following weeks, Emily settled into her role. She worked hard, often staying late to finish campaigns or pitch ideas. Her creativity and persistence quickly caught the attention of the marketing team, and of Adrian himself. He often stopped by her desk, pretending to discuss a project but lingering a little too long. Sometimes he brought her coffee, sometimes just stood quietly beside her while she explained her plans. At first, Emily tried to keep her distance. "He's your boss," she reminded herself every time her heart skipped when he smiled. But it was hard not to feel drawn to him. He wasn't just brilliant, he was kind. When Noah's daycare called one afternoon because her son had a fever, Emily panicked. "I'm so sorry," she told her supervisor. "I need to go. I'll make up the hours." Before she could finish, Adrian appeared in the doorway. "Go," he said simply. She looked up, startled. "But the report, I'll cover it. Family comes first." Her throat tightened. "Thank you." He smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me for being human, Emily." She didn't know it then, but those small moments, those gestures of quiet understanding, were what began to stitch her broken heart back together. 3 months later, Blackwell Industries hosted its annual charity gala, a grand event held in the company ballroom, filled with clients, partners, and media. Emily had been part of the organizing committee, working late nights to make sure everything ran perfectly. She had almost declined the invitation to attend, but Claire had insisted. "You worked too hard not to be there. It's not just a work event, it's your night, too." But fate, as always, had its own plans. An hour before she was supposed to leave, the babysitter called. Her car had broken down, and she couldn't make it. Emily stared at her reflection in the mirror, hair curled, dress ironed, heels on, and felt the familiar ache of frustration rise in her chest. She called Claire to explain, but before she could finish, Adrian's calm voice came through the line. "Bring him." "What?" she said, stunned. "Bring Noah. I'll handle it." "Adrian, this is a formal event. It's a charity gala, not a royal banquet," he interrupted, his tone firm but kind. "You're coming. Both of you. When she arrived, the ballroom shimmered with light and laughter. Emily felt small and awkward at first, balancing Noah on her hip amid people in designer suits and gowns. But before the stares could settle, Adrian appeared. He was in a black tuxedo, bow tie slightly undone, a rare softness in his eyes. He reached for Noah immediately, and to Emily's shock, her son squealed in delight, reaching back. Adrian lifted him effortlessly. "There's my little assistant," he said, smiling. "Let's go charm the board of directors." Emily laughed despite herself. "You're serious." "Completely." And he was. For the next hour, Adrian carried Noah around the event, introducing him to investors, jokingly calling him, "our youngest partner." Laughter followed them everywhere. The once intimidating CEO looked utterly at ease, a baby on his arm, a warmth in his smile that no one had ever seen before. Emily watched from a distance, her heart tightening in her chest. It was a sight she hadn't known she needed, a man unafraid of tenderness. Later that night, as the gala wound down and music softened into a slow piano tune, Emily stepped outside for air. The city lights reflected in the glass walls, painting gold and silver streaks across the terrace. She heard footsteps behind her. "Escaping?" Adrian's voice asked softly. She turned, smiling faintly. "Just catching my breath." He joined her by the railing, loosening his tie. "You were incredible tonight. Everyone's talking about your campaign pitch." She laughed lightly. "Pretty sure they're talking about you holding a baby in a tuxedo." He chuckled. "That too." For a moment, silence fell, comfortable, gentle. Then his gaze drifted to her, his voice quieter. You don't have to keep apologizing for being a mother, you know. Emily looked down, fingers twisting together. It's hard not to. Every time something goes wrong, when daycare calls, when I have to leave early, I feel like I'm failing at both jobs. As a mom and as an employee. Adrian shook his head. You're not failing, you're surviving, and that takes more strength than most people will ever understand. His words sank deep, hitting the place in her heart she kept hidden. You make it sound easy, she murmured. Maybe it doesn't have to be hard anymore, he said quietly. She turned to face him then, her breath catching. His eyes weren't cold or calculating like the ones she'd seen across the boardroom table. They were warm, searching. I thought I lost my chance at happiness when my ex left, she admitted, voice trembling. I told myself love wasn't for people like me anymore. Just responsibilities. Adrian's gaze softened even more. Maybe you didn't lose it. Maybe you just had to meet the right person to remind you what it feels like. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. The air between them shifted, closer, charged with something she hadn't felt in years. He reached out, slowly brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered near her cheek, barely touching. You deserve to be seen, Emily. Not for what you've lost, but for what you've endured. Her lips parted, but words failed her. In her arms, Noah stirred, murmuring softly in his sleep. Adrian smiled faintly, his hand moving to rest gently over the baby's tiny back. Sorry, Emily whispered, a nervous laugh escaping her. I brought my baby again. Adrian's smile deepened, the warmth in his voice wrapping around her like a promise. Good, he said softly. Because I think I've fallen for both of you. The city lights shimmered around them, and in that quiet moment, beneath the stars, with her baby safe in her arms and the man who saw her heart standing inches away, Emily realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to live again. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt something she hadn't in years. Hope.